Wipe it spotless, you black girl, and maybe I'll let you sit in the leather chair. The words cracked through the marble-floored foyer like a whip. Sharp enough to silence the faint hum of the Prescott estate. Maya Williams froze, rag in hand, knees pressed against the cold stone. Her eyes didn't lift, not yet. She'd learned that looking Franklin Prescott in the eye only gave him more to smirk about. From the grand staircase, the billionaire's polished shoes clicked closer. The scent of his whiskey-laced breath following like a shadow. Beside him, Victor, the estate's wine steward, cradled a crystal decanter as if it were worth more than a human life. Victor's smile was razor-thin. You'll never taste this, Maya. Grand Cru from Côte de Nutes. Smells like heaven. Women like you don't sip it, you mop it up. Prescott chuckled low in his throat, swirling his drink. Careful, Victor. She might start thinking she's one of us. Maya's grip on the rag tightened until her knuckles ached. In her mind, she saw herself in the Department of Labor, handing over a notebook filled with dates, times, and every cruel word. She could file a complaint. Maybe even make the news. But then she saw her mother's tired eyes. The row of pill bottles on the nightstand, her younger brother's Howard University acceptance letter taped proudly to the fridge. They needed her paycheck. They needed her silence. That evening, the estate bloomed into opulence, chandeliers spilling light like waterfalls, violins threading the air with delicate notes. Maya moved between guests with practiced grace, balancing trays of truffle gougers and smoked salmon canapes. Cruelty came dressed in diamonds. A woman in pearls sniffed, "I hope you didn't touch these with your bare hands." A tuxedoed man tapped his empty champagne flute against her tray. "Faster, sweetheart, or you'll lose your tip." Her mother arrived quietly, setting a jar of homemade soup on the kitchen counter. Eyes soft but watchful. She lingered, half hidden behind the swinging door, witnessing each small humiliation. Then came the sound, glass shattering near the center of the room. "Oops." A broad-shouldered guest drawled, reeking of gin. "Clean it up for me, darling." Maya crouched, sweeping the shards into her palm. The man shifted, and his polished shoe came down hard on her hand. Pain knifed through her fingers, a warm trickle of blood marking her skin. "Get your foot off my daughter." The voice, her mother's, cut through the hum of conversation like a thunderclap. Heads turned. Prescott's expression stormed dark. "What is this?" he demanded. "She's my child," her mother shot back, stepping forward. "And I won't stand here while you—" "Enough." Prescott's voice boomed. "Out. You've ruined my evening. I don't pay for drama. I pay for service." The slam of the front door behind them felt like a verdict. Outside, the cool night air clung to their skin. They had nearly reached the staff quarters to gather Maya's few belongings when a flicker of orange light caught her eye. In the parlor window, shadows leapt like frantic dancers. Smoke curled into the night. Somewhere inside, a child's voice screamed, "Fire!" For one heartbeat, they stood frozen. They could have walked away. They should have. Instead, Maya dropped her bag. "Come on," she said. They plunged back through the side entrance into choking heat and roiling black smoke. The grand parlor's velvet drapes burned like paper, casting the room in an infernal glow. Prescott lay slumped in the hallway, dazed and coughing. Maya hooked her arms beneath his shoulders, her mother bracing his legs, and together they staggered toward the door. Cool air hit them like a blessing as they burst outside. Applause erupted from the guests huddled on the lawn. Prescott collapsed into the arms of paramedics, soot streaking his pale face. Hours later, as dawn crept over the scorched estate, Prescott found them on the back steps, wrapped in blankets. His voice was quieter than Maya had ever heard it. "I owe you my life," he said. "And I've been a damn fool." Maya studied him, his fine suit singed, his eyes carrying something new. Not humility, but the first weight of realization. For every word. Everything I did, I can't change it. But I can try to make it right. Your mother's medical care is covered. Your brother's tuition, paid. And if you'll have it, I want you as head housekeeper. Full authority. No one treats you that way again. Maya's voice was steady. Not for me, she said. For them. And as the first hammer blows rang out, not to rebuild the marble floor, but to build something closer to respect, the fight for dignity had begun. If you want to follow Maya's journey and discover more heartfelt and unexpected stories like this, subscribe to Spark Within Tales today. Every subscription is a vote of support that keeps these stories alive, reaching and touching more hearts around the world. If you feel moved by Mia's story, please like this video to show your support. And don't forget to comment below where you're watching from. Who knows? There might be others near you watching and connecting with this story, too. That night, the estate transformed for a lavish reception. Chandeliers blazed and laughter rolled through the halls like expensive perfume. Maya moved between guests, balancing trays of ordo over smoked salmon canopy, truffle gour, bacon-wrapped scallops. The cruelty was casual. A woman in pearls waved her over, only to snatch a can of say. I hope you didn't touch these with your bare hands. A young man in a tux tapped his empty champagne glass against Mia's tray and muttered, "Faster, sweetheart, or you'll lose your tip." Mia's mother had come quietly to drop off a jar of homemade soup. She lingered by the kitchen door, unseen, watching her daughter navigate the minefield of privilege. Her heart tightened with each small indignity. Then came the breaking point. A tall, broad-shouldered guest reeking of gin accidentally dropped his crystal wine glass near the center of the room. "Oops," he said, smirking. "Clean it up for me, darling." Maya crouched, carefully, gathering shards into her palm. The man shifted his stance, and his polished shoe came down hard, deliberately on her hand. She gasped as pain shot through her fingers, blood welling where the glass bit her skin. Before she could move, her mother burst from the kitchen. "Get your foot off my daughter." Her voice cracked like thunder across the parlor. Every head turned. Prescott strode forward, his expression stormed dark. "What is this?" "She's my child." Her mother cried. "And I won't stand here while you treat her like..." "Enough." Prescott's voice boomed. In one swift, shocking motion, he shoved both women toward the door. "Out. You've ruined my evening. I don't pay for drama. I pay for service. Get out of my house." The front door slammed behind them. Night air bit at their skin as they stood on the steps. Maya clutching her throbbing hand, her mother trembling with rage. They walked toward the driveway, ready to collect Maya's few belongings from the staff quarters. That's when it happened. A flicker of orange light in the corner of her vision. In the parlor window, shadows leapt wildly against the curtains. Smoke curled into the night. Somewhere inside, a child's panicked voice shouted, "Fire!" Later, they would learn that one of the guests' children had been playing with a decorative candle display, knocking it into a stack of linen napkins. The fire had spread fast across the room's ornate drapes. Guests poured out of the front door, coughing, clutching their coats and handbags, but one face was missing. Franklin Prescott's. "He's still inside." Someone gasped. Maya and her mother locked eyes for a heartbeat. They could have walked away. They should have. But instead, they dropped their bags and ran back in through the side entrance, ducking under a curtain of smoke. In the choking heat, they found him in the hallway, slumped against the wall, dazed from the smoke. Maya grabbed him under the arms while her mother steadied his legs. Together, coughing and staggering, they dragged him toward the door. The moment they burst into the cool night, applause and shouts erupted from the crowd. Paramedics rushed in, checking Prescott's vitals as firefighters swarmed the estate. Hours later, as dawn broke over the charred remains of the parlor, Prescott found Maya and her mother sitting on the back steps wrapped in blankets, their faces smeared with soot. He lowered himself onto the step beside them. His voice for once carried no arrogance. "I owe you my life," he said quietly. "And I've been a damn fool." Maya didn't respond right away. She looked at him at the fine suit, now stained and torn, and saw something new. Not humility exactly, but the weight of realization. "I'm sorry," he went on. "For every word, everything I did, I can't change it, but I can try to make it right. From now on, your mother's medical care is covered. Your brother's tuition paid in full. And if you'll have it, I'd like you to take over as head housekeeper. Full authority. No one treats you that way again." Maya studied him for a long moment, then nodded once. "Not for me," she said softly. "For them. And somewhere behind them, in the quiet gray of morning." The first hammer blows sounded not to rebuild the marble floor, but to build something closer to respect. The morning after the fire, the Prescott estate was a hushed shell of its former self. The grand parlor lay charred and blackened, a ghostly reminder of the night's chaos. The scent of smoke clung stubbornly to the heavy velvet drapes, the gilded frames now coated in ash. The estate staff moved quietly through the rooms, each step careful, their faces drawn and pale. Maya sat in the modest staff quarters, the weight of last night still heavy on her shoulders. But to leave meant sacrificing her family's security. Later that day, Maya was summoned to the drawing room, now cordoned off and buzzing with the presence of contractors and insurance agents. Prescott was waiting, his suit freshly pressed, his demeanor subdued yet firm. "I mean what I said," he began, voice stripped of its usual arrogance. "You saved my life. I was a fool before." Blinded by my own pride, Maya held his gaze steady and measured. "It wasn't pride that made you treat me and my mother that way," she said. "It was power. And power without respect is nothing but cruelty." He nodded, a flicker of something unreadable passing through his eyes. "I'll do better. Starting now." The days that followed were a whirlwind of rebuilding and reform. Maya took on her new role with a mixture of determination and caution. She was no longer just a housekeeper. She was the woman who would set the tone for the household. Her first act was subtle but profound. She called a meeting with the entire staff, chefs, cleaners, drivers, and assistants alike. "We're a team," she told them. "And no one here deserves to be treated as less than human. That includes the people who pay our wages." There were nods, some hesitant, others relieved. Marcus, the chef who had watched over her during the reception, gave a small smile, a silent vow of solidarity. But not everyone welcomed the change. Gloria, the house manager, who had long maintained order through silence and compliance, pulled Mia Aside. You're walking a fine line, Gloria warned. These people have money and influence. They don't take kindly to being challenged. Mia met her eyes unflinching. Neither do I. Outside the estate, word of the fire and Prescott's fall from grace had spread quietly at first. Then with increasing force. The local news whispered of a scandal at one of Beverly Hills' most exclusive homes. But details were scarce. Prescott's company issued a statement expressing regret over the incident and praising the bravery of the staff. Naomi Park, an investigative journalist known for her tenacity, caught wind of the story. She reached out to Maya with a cautious message. If you're willing to talk, I'm willing to listen. Maya hesitated. The prospect of opening old wounds was daunting. Yet the chance to expose the darker side of wealth and privilege was tempting. She replied simply, I have a story. Their meeting was arranged at a small cafe in South Los Angeles. Over cups of strong coffee and the hum of distant traffic, Mia recounted the nights of humiliation, the fire, and the tentative steps toward change. Naomi listened intently, jotting down notes. Her recorder discreetly capturing every word. This isn't just about one man or one estate, Mia said. It's about the countless people like me who are invisible, silenced. Found himself the subject of a quiet reprimand when he attempted to belittle a new server. Mia's sharp glance stopped him cold. Here, respect is not optional, she said softly. Yet with unmistakable authority, despite the progress, Mia knew the road ahead was long. The scars, both visible and invisible, would not heal overnight. But for the first time in a long while, she felt a flicker of hope. Hope that dignity could be reclaimed. Hope that power could be tempered with kindness. Hope that one day no one would have to beg to be treated like a human being. But the road to justice was never straightforward. One rainy afternoon, Maya sat in the cramped kitchen office, her fingers tightening around a steaming mug of coffee. Marcus entered quietly, placing a folder on the table. I found this in the records, he said. Voice low. Invoices, emails, proof of hush payments to former staff who complained. People who were just like you. Guests arrived in waves, laughter and chatter filling the expansive rooms. But beneath the glitter, Maya sensed a gathering storm. Whispers followed her. Glances flicked her way, some curious, others cold. Among the guests was Eleanor Whitman, a prominent socialite with a reputation for biting wit and ruthless influence. She approached Maya with a sweet smile that didn't reach her eyes. My dear, Ella Laner Coop. I do hope the staff is up to the occasion tonight. We wouldn't want any mishaps. Mia's smile was polite, but distant. We're prepared, Miss Whitman. I pay for service, not disorder. Leave my house. Maya and her mother exchanged a glance. Fear, anger, and resolve mingling in their eyes. They gathered their things and left under the weight of the guests' stares. Outside, the night air was thick with tension, but the evening storm was far from over. Days later, news broke that a fire had ravaged the estate's grand parlor. Investigators determined a careless child's candle had ignited the ornate drapes. Though everyone escaped safely, the damage was severe. Mia knew the fight was far from over. The gathering storm of power, prejudice, and privilege would test her resolve at every turn. But she was ready, and this time she would not be silenced. The fire had left scars on the Prescott estate, both visible and hidden. The charred walls of the grand parlor stood as a stark reminder of a Night when power and pride nearly consumed everything. But in the days following, a subtle transformation began to take hold. One led by Maya Williams, now firmly in her role as head housekeeper. Morning light filtered through the large windows of the estate's kitchen. As Mia reviewed the staff's schedule, her hand still bore the faint scar from the broken glass. Her voice steady. But we're more than just workers here. We're a family, and families respect each other. There were murmurs of agreement. Marcus nodded approvingly. Maya continued, starting today. There will be no tolerance for disrespect, whether from guests or from within our own ranks. We will hold each other accountable. She laid out new protocols for handling difficult guests, procedures for reporting harassment, and plans for staff training sessions on workplace respect. The message was clear. Things would no longer be as they were. Yet change was not without resistance. Gloria, the house manager, who had long kept the peace by acquiescence, voiced her concerns privately. You're stirring up waters that run deep, she warned. Some of these people don't like being told no. Maya met her gaze firmly. Then they'll have to get used to it. Outside the walls of the estate, the story of Mia's courage and the fire's aftermath began to ripple through the community. Naomi Park's article ran in the Los Angeles Ledger detailing not only the fire, but the undercurrents of injustice that had long gone unnoticed. The public response was overwhelming. Letters poured into the Ledger, some supportive, others skeptical or dismissive. Maya read each one carefully, aware that her story had struck a nerve far beyond the gilded gates of Beverly Hills. Back at the estate, Mia's days were filled with new responsibilities. She worked closely with contractors overseeing the restoration of the fire-damaged rooms, ensuring the workers were treated fairly and that safety was prioritized. She also began mentoring junior staff, many of whom had previously been invisible or undervalued. Her office became a place of refuge, a space where concerns could be raised without fear. One afternoon, Prescott himself appeared unexpectedly. His demeanor had softened. The harshness was replaced by a tentative humility. Maya, he began, I want to thank you for everything. Your leadership has changed this place. She nodded, keeping her reply measured. Thank you, Mr. Prescott. I'm just doing what's right. He smiled. A genuine flicker that reached his eyes. Good. Because there's more to do, and I want you by my side. That night, as Maya sat with her mother over a simple dinner, she allowed herself a moment of reflection. The journey ahead was daunting. But she felt the stirrings of hope, a hope rooted not in wealth or power, but in dignity and respect. Outside, the city lights of Los Angeles twinkled, a reminder that even amidst shadows, there was light to guide the way. The days after Prescott's unexpected visit carried a strange new energy through the estate. Maya found herself navigating uncharted territory, balancing the weight of leadership with the quiet hope that real change could take root. But beneath the surface, old currents swirled unseen yet potent, threatening to undo the fragile progress. Early one morning, as Maya walked through the sunlit hallways, she noticed Victor lingering near the wine cellar door. His expression was tight, guarded. She paused. Victor, she said softly. Can we talk? He looked surprised but nodded. They moved to a quieter corner. I want to understand. Maya began. Why the attitude before? Why the cruelty? Victor sighed, rubbing his hands together nervously. It's not just me, he admitted. It's the way. Things have always been here. The hierarchy, the unspoken rules. It's hard to break free. Maya nodded, recognizing the weight of tradition and fear. Then we break them together. But change was not welcomed by all. Gloria, who once guarded the estate's secrets, now watched Mia with suspicion. One afternoon, she summoned Mia to the manager's office. "You're stirring things up," Gloria said sharply. "Some people are uncomfortable. They say you're too bold." Mia met her steady gaze. "I'm doing what's necessary. If that makes people uncomfortable, then maybe it's time for discomfort." Meanwhile, Naomi Park's investigative reporting gained momentum. Maya received messages of support from strangers and former staff. Some emboldened to speak out, others hesitant, but hopeful. Each message was a thread weaving a larger tapestry of resilience and demand for justice. One evening at a community meeting hosted by Pastor Leonard Brooks, Mia spoke before a gathered crowd. The church is simple. Wooden pews were filled with faces etched by hardship and hope. We all know what it feels like to be overlooked. Undervalued, Maya said, voice strong yet compassionate. But standing together, we find strength. No one should have to live in silence. The applause was warm, a balm to weary souls. Back at the estate, cracks began to show in the old order. Victor's quiet shift towards respect unsettled some guests who expected difference from the staff. A wealthy patron complained about the changing atmosphere, whispering to others that the estate was losing its charm. Maya faced each challenge with steady resolve. She reinforced training, insisted on clear boundaries, and made sure that dignity was never negotiable. One afternoon, Prescott joined her in the restored library, his voice reflective. "This place is changing," he said. "Maybe it's changing me, too." Maya smiled faintly. Change is hard, but necessary. As the sun set over Beverly Hills, the estate stood as a symbol of wealth and power. Yes, but now also of quiet revolution. And at its heart was a woman who refused to let history repeat itself. Mia looked out the window, feeling the ripples her courage was creating, knowing the tide would rise, carrying all who dared with it. The calm that had settled over the Prescott estate was fragile like glass balanced on a tightrope, ready to shatter with the slightest disturbance. Maya felt it in the whispered conversations behind closed doors, in the stiff smiles from some guests, and in the silent judgment that followed her through the grand hallways. One afternoon, as the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the polished floors, Maya received an unexpected visitor. Naomi Park arrived. Her presence a mix of urgency and compassion. "I've been digging deeper," Naomi said, settling into a chair across from Maya. "There are stories more than just what we've seen here. Former employees who faced worse. People afraid to speak because they've been silenced. A testament to systemic injustice woven through countless households like Prescott's. But with the growing attention came pushback. Prescott's legal team began sending warnings letters filled with thinly veiled threats designed to intimidate. The estate staff were reminded, often subtly, of the consequences of stirring trouble. Maya refused to be cowed. She convened a meeting with her team. "We will not be silenced," she declared. "Not by threats, not by money, not by fear." Marcus nodded in agreement. "It's time to stand firm." The next gala at the estate was a test. The glittering crowd arrived with their usual pomp. But Mia noticed the undercurrents: whispers, sideways glances, the tightening of smiles. Eleanor Whitman was there again, her eyes sharp as ever, watching Mia's every move. During the evening, Maya overheard a conversation between two guests, their words dripping with disdain about the changes happening under her watch. "They think they can rewrite the rules," one sneered. "But power doesn't yield." Maya's jaw clenched. But she kept her composure. She knew the fight was bigger than any one insult. Later, in a private moment, Prescott approached her, his usual arrogance tempered by a hint of vulnerability. One evening, after a particularly moving meeting, Mia received a message from a former employee of another estate. She had suffered abuse and feared retaliation. It was clear the ripple effect of their actions was spreading far beyond the mansion's walls. Back at Prescott Estate, the staff was growing stronger, united by shared purpose. Yet, Maya knew the road ahead would be long and arduous. The echoes of defiance would need to become a chorus. As she stood by the window, watching the sun dip below the horizon, Mia whispered to herself, "We will not be broken. Not now, not ever." The air in the Prescott estate felt heavier than usual as preparations for another high-profile charity gala unfolded. The grand hall, still scarred but slowly regaining its former splendor, was filled with the hum of workers setting tables, arranging flowers, and rehearsing their roles. Maya moved through the bustle with a quiet determination, aware that tonight was more than a social event. It was a test of everything she had fought for. Alert to every glance and whisper. Eleanor Whitman was there, radiant and ruthless, her smile a blade disguised as silk. She approached Maya with the same condescending sweetness she had perfected, her voice dripping with false concern. "I do hope you're keeping everything under control, dear," Eleanor said, her eyes narrowing ever so slightly. It would be unfortunate if the staff's behavior overshadowed the evening. Maya met her gaze evenly. "The staff is prepared, Miss Whitman. I assure you this evening will go smoothly." But the night was far from smooth. During the formal toast, as Prescott raised his glass and spoke of renewal and unity, a young man staggered near the bar, clearly intoxicated. He knocked over a tray of crystal glasses, sending them crashing to the marble floor. The room fell silent. Without hesitation, Mia stepped forward to collect the shattered glass. But before she could finish, the young man with a cruel grin pressed his polished shoe hard against her hand, twisting it painfully. A sharp gasp escaped her lips as blood welled from a small cut. Shock rippled through the crowd. Maya's mother, who had come to support her daughter once again, rushed out from behind the curtains. "Get your foot off my daughter," she shouted, her voice ringing through the hall. All eyes turned. Prescott's face darkened with fury as he stormed toward them. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded. "She's my child," her mother declared fiercely. "And I won't stand by while she's treated like this." Prescott's voice cut through the tension, cold and commanding. "Out. You've ruined my evening. I pay for service, not disorder. Leave my house." Maya and her mother exchanged a determined look. They gathered their things and walked out under the heavy weight of the guest stairs. Outside, news broke of a fire that had ravaged the estate's grand parlor. Investigators concluded that a child of one of the guests had accidentally knocked over a candle, setting ablaze the ornate drapes. Though all escaped unharmed, Prescott was trapped inside, overcome by smoke. It was Maya and her mother who had braved the smoke and flames to rescue him, tasked with transforming the estate's culture. Yet, as dawn broke over the charred remains of the parlor, Maya understood that the battle for dignity and respect was far from over. The breaking point had come, but the road ahead remained long and uncertain. She looked toward the horizon, her spirit unyielding. The fight was just beginning. The aftermath of the fire left a strange silence hovering over the Prescott estate. The charred walls of the grand parlor stood as a somber reminder of how quickly fortune and power could unravel. But within that silence, a new narrative was beginning to take shape. One led by Maya Williams, whose courage had altered the very fabric of the household. Mia's days were consumed by tasks both mundane and monumental. She oversaw repairs, coordinated with contractors, and managed an increasingly weary staff. But beneath the practicalities, she carried the weight of expectation from her family, from the community, and from herself. One afternoon, as sunlight streamed through the half-repaired windows, Maya found herself face to face with a symbol of the estate's old world. Victor, the wine steward, the man whose arrogance and scorn had once made her feel invisible, now stood awkwardly in her path. "Miss Williams," he began, his voice low. "I wanted to apologize for my behavior before. It was unacceptable." Maya regarded him carefully. "Apologies are a start," she said, "but actions speak louder." Victor nodded, a flicker of humility in his eyes. "I want to change. Help me understand." It was a moment Maya hadn't expected, a crack in the facade of power. She saw in Victor the conflict between old habits and the possibility of growth. Meanwhile, Mia's partnership with Naomi Park deepened. The journalist's stories continued to shine light on the hidden struggles of domestic workers and the systemic injustices they faced. Their collaboration became a beacon for others, inspiring courage and conversation far beyond the estate's walls. But resistance remained. Gloria, the longtime house manager, grew distant and cautious, wary of the shifting power dynamics. At a private meeting, she warned Mia, "Not everyone here wants change. Some will fight tooth and nail to preserve the status quo." Maya met her gaze with steady resolve. "Then we'll face them together." Her experience a testament to resilience. Yet even as progress took root, Mia understood the challenges ahead. The shadows of prejudice and entitlement were deep, and the path toward justice was winding and uncertain. One evening, as Maya stood alone on the estate's terrace, watching the city lights flicker below, she whispered a vow to herself and those who had come before her. "We will carry the light through the darkness, no matter the cost." The estate buzzed with activity as the restoration work progressed. But beneath the surface, old wounds and new challenges simmered. Maya found herself caught in the middle of a delicate balancing act, keeping the household running smoothly while pushing for change that unsettled long-standing power structures. One morning, as the sunlight poured into her modest office, a stack of documents arrived from Naomi Park. The journalist's investigation had uncovered a trail of hush money, payments, settlements, and veiled threats aimed at silencing former staff from several estates across the city. Maya studied the papers, a knot tightening in her stomach. These were not isolated incidents. They were part of a broader system designed to protect privilege and punish those who dared to speak out. Marcus entered quietly, his face grave. "They won't back down easily," he said. "We have to be smart." Maya nodded, determination hardening in her eyes. Then we make our moves carefully, but we move forward. As the day wore on, Mia's phone buzzed with messages from former employees reaching out for support. Some hesitant, others desperate. Ruth emphasized. Every date, every word, every incident, record it all. Build a case that can't be ignored. Maya felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders, but also a fierce resolve. This was no longer just about her family or the Prescott estate. It was about justice on a broader scale. Back at the estate, tensions rose as some guests and staff bristled at the changing dynamics. But her purpose was clear, she whispered to herself. For those who came before us, and those who will come after we carry on. The morning sun cast a warm glow over the modest church hall in South Los Angeles where the community had gathered for an event that Maya had helped organize. The worn wooden pews filled quickly with faces marked by hardship, resilience, and hope. This was no ordinary gathering. It was a rally for change. A forum for workers long silenced by fear and injustice. Maya stood at the front, her heart pounding with a mix of nerves and determination. She scanned the crowd, meeting the eyes of men and women who had endured discrimination, exploitation, and invisibility. Their stories echoed her own, threads of pain woven into a tapestry of shared struggle. Pastor Leonard Brooks stepped forward, his voice steady and commanding. Today, we come together not just to speak, but to listen, to support one another, and to build the strength we need to demand the dignity we deserve. Maya took a deep breath and stepped up. For too long, people like us have been pushed to the margins, told our work doesn't matter, that our voices don't count. But that ends now. Her voice grew stronger. We are here to say enough. We deserve respect. We deserve fair treatment. And together, we will make that happen. Applause filled the room. A wave of affirmation washing over the gathered crowd. Maya felt a surge of pride and responsibility. This was more than a meeting. It was a movement. After the speeches, small groups formed, sharing experiences and advice. Maya listened to stories of courage and pain, of quiet victories and ongoing battles. She realized the depth of the work ahead. A wealthy donor sneered at the changed atmosphere, muttering about lost elegance and proper service. One evening, Eleanor Whitman approached Maya again, her smile thin and sharp. "You're rewriting the rules, aren't you?" she said quietly. "Careful, you might find that not everyone wants to play by them." Maya met her gaze steadily. "Then we'll find new players." Meanwhile, Maya continued her collaboration with Naomi Park. Their partnership grew stronger as more former workers came forward. Their stories illuminating a broader pattern of exploitation and courage. One afternoon, Naomi called with urgent news. A major news outlet was interested in the story, ready to bring national attention to the struggles Maya and others had endured. Mia felt a mix of excitement and fear. The spotlight could bring change or it could bring backlash. That night, as she sat with her mother and brother, Maya shared the news. "This is bigger than us now," she said softly. "But we have to be ready for whatever comes." Her mother reached across the table, squeezing her hand. "You've already made us proud, no matter what happens next." Outside, the city lights of Los Angeles glittered like a promise. Maya knew the road ahead would be hard. But she also knew she would not walk it alone. The night of The charity gala arrived with a pulse that reverberated through every corner of the Prescott estate. Guests shimmered in designer gowns and tailored tuxedos, their laughter mingling with the delicate notes of a string quartet playing in the restored parlor. The air was thick with the scent of roses and expensive perfume. But beneath the glittering surface, Maya felt the undercurrent of tension waiting to break free. As head housekeeper, Maya moved through the crowd like a silent conductor, orchestrating the flow of service with a keen eye and steady hand. Yet she knew tonight would be a true test not just of the estate's reputation, but of her own resolve. Eleanor Whitman, as always, was a fixture of the evening, her sharp gaze never straying far from Maya. The socialite's polite smile held a dangerous edge, a reminder of the old world's refusal to relinquish its grip. During the formal toast, Prescott raised his glass, his voice confident but measured. Tonight marks a new chapter for our estate. A chapter of respect, unity, and progress. Maya's eyes scanned the room, noting subtle smirks and exchanged glances. Change was a threat to some, a challenge to their comfortable power. As the night progressed, a young guest, visibly intoxicated, stumbled toward the bar. His laughter was loud, careless. Without warning, he knocked over a tray of crystal glasses, shattering them against the marble floor. The room fell into a stunned silence. Maya moved swiftly, crouching to collect the shards. But before she could finish, the young man pressed his polished shoe down hard on her hand, twisting it cruelly. Pain shot through her fingers as blood began to seep from a small cut. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Maya bit back a cry, steadying herself as her mother, who had been watching quietly from the sidelines, rushed forward. "Get your foot off my daughter." Her voice rang out, powerful and unwavering. Heads turned sharply. Prescott's expression darkened, his eyes flashing with anger as he approached. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded, his tone cutting through the tension. "She's my child," her mother said firmly, standing beside Maya. "And I won't stand by while she is treated this way." Prescott's voice thundered through the hall. "Out. You've ruined my evening. I don't pay for drama. I pay for service. Leave my house." Maya and her mother exchanged a glance, one filled with fear, anger, and defiance. They gathered their things and left under the weight of hostile stares. Outside, that act shifted everything. Prescott's public apology was sincere, and his promises to cover medical bills and tuition were met with cautious optimism. Mia's official appointment as house manager signaled a new era, but the fight for true respect and equality was only beginning. As dawn broke over the charred remains of the parlor, Mia stood quietly, the weight of the past and the hope for the future settling on her shoulders. The battle lines were clear, and she was ready to stand her ground. The weeks that followed the fire and the rescue at the Prescott estate carried a tense undercurrent. What had seemed like a turning point was instead the opening salvo of a longer, more grueling battle. Maya found herself navigating not only the daily responsibilities of her role as house manager, but also the growing resistance from those unwilling to embrace change. Every morning, the estate awoke to a mix of restoration noises, hammers, drills, the scrape of paint brushes, but also whispered conversations and sideways glances that told Mia the true battle was still unfolding behind closed doors. One afternoon, as Mia walked through the sunlit hallways, she spotted Victor, the wine steward, standing alone near the cellar door. His usually confident posture was tight, shoulders hunched as if carrying a burden. Mia stood firm, in the knowledge that the gathering storm was inevitable. But so was their determination to face it head-on. The weeks leading up to the next major event at the Prescott estate were marked by a quiet intensity. Preparations for the annual philanthropy gala were underway, promising a night of high society splendor and a test of everything Mia had worked for. Maya moved through the estate with purpose, overseeing every detail. The restoration of the grand parlor was near completion, its walls freshly painted and drapes replaced with crisp linens. But beneath the polish lay the deeper challenge: managing the guests and ensuring the respect of the staff. The invitation list was a who's who of the city's elite patrons, donors, and influencers, many of whom had once looked down on the estate's workers. Now, with Maya at the helm, the atmosphere was shifting. The old dynamics were being questioned, and some guests were uncomfortable. On the night of the gala, chandeliers sparkled, and soft music filled the air. Maya greeted guests with a composed smile, aware of the silent judgments. Eleanor Whitman was there, her sharp eyes tracking Mia's every move. The socialite's thinly veiled disdain was a constant reminder of the obstacles ahead. As the evening progressed, Mia noticed subtle tensions. A wealthy donor whispered complaints about the change in ambience while another guest frowned at the sight of staff standing taller, speaking with confidence. During the formal toast, Prescott raised his glass. His speech was carefully measured, a call for unity and progress that resonated beyond the room's opulence. Maya felt the weight of his words, knowing they carried expectations and hope, but the gala was far from smooth. A young guest, clearly intoxicated, stumbled near the bar. With a careless sweep, he knocked over a tray of crystal glasses, shattering them on the marble floor. The room fell silent, eyes turning toward Maya. She moved swiftly, crouching to collect the shards. But before she could finish, the young man pressed his polished shoe down hard on her hand, twisting it cruelly. Pain shot through her fingers, and blood began to seep from a small cut. Gasps echoed through the crowd. Maya bit back a cry, steadying herself. Her mother, who had come quietly to support her daughter, rushed forward. "Get your foot off my daughter," she shouted, her voice ringing with fierce protectiveness. The room's atmosphere shifted instantly. Prescott's face darkened, fury flashing in his eyes as he approached. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded. "She's my child," her mother declared, standing beside Maya. "And I will not stand by while she is treated this way." Prescott's voice thundered through the hall. "Out. You've ruined my evening. I pay for service, not disorder. Leave my house." Maya and her mother exchanged a look filled with defiance. They gathered their things and left, walking through the heavy silence and stares that followed them. Outside, the cool night air was sharp and electric with possibility. The line had been drawn. In the days after the gala, though the road ahead remained long. As dawn broke over the estate's charred walls, Mia stood quietly, feeling the weight of history and the promise of a new future. The test of fire had come, and she was ready to face what came next. The days following the fire and the dramatic events of the gala were filled with a new kind of activity at the Prescott estate. The charred remains of the grand parlor were being carefully dismantled, replaced by walls fresh with paint and new drapes that whispered of renewal. But the true rebuilding was taking place beneath the surface in the hearts and minds of those who lived and worked within these walls. Maya's role as head housekeeper was no longer just a title. One morning she gathered the staff in the now sunlit kitchen. The room was filled with familiar faces. Marcus, Gloria, Victor, and others who had weathered the storm alongside her. She outlined new protocols for communication and accountability, emphasizing the importance of mutual respect between staff and guests. There would be regular meetings, open forums, and a clear channel for reporting grievances without fear of reprisal. Marcus spoke up, his tone hopeful. "This is the start of something real. We can make this place better for everyone." Maya nodded. "Yes, but it will take time, patience, and courage." Outside the estate, the community's response was growing. Naomi Park's articles had sparked conversations across the city, shining light on the often invisible struggles of domestic workers. Support poured in letters, calls, and offers to help build a network of resources and legal aid. Maya found strength in these connections, attending community meetings led by Pastor Leonard Brooks. The church hall buzzed with energy as workers shared stories, educated themselves on their rights, and formed bonds that transcended fear and isolation. At the estate, subtle shifts were becoming evident. Staff began to hold their heads higher, their voices more confident. Guests, too, adjusted. Some grudgingly, others with genuine respect. One afternoon, Victor approached Maya with a tentative smile. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said, about respect." Mia returned the smile. "It's a journey, Victor, but every step counts." Yet, Maya knew the path ahead was not without obstacles. There were still murmurs of resistance. Subtle attempts to undermine the new order. Gloria, once cautious, was beginning to find her voice, offering support in ways that had once seemed impossible. As evening fell over Beverly Hills, Maya stood on the estate's terrace. The grand parlor, still bearing scars of the fire, was shuttered for repairs. But within the walls of the Prescott estate, a different kind of gathering was taking place, one not of opulence, but of voices finally uniting. Maya sat in the modest staff lounge, surrounded by colleagues who had once felt invisible, silenced by fear and subservience. Tonight was different. Tonight they were here not as servants, but as people demanding respect and fairness. The meeting had been organized in secret, away from the watchful eyes of the estate's more powerful guests, and of moments when courage had sparked in the darkest hours. The room filled with a mixture of pain and strength, a collective recognition of shared struggle. Legal aid volunteers outlined workers' rights, protections under the law, and ways to document abuse safely. Questions flowed, anxieties were voiced. And slowly the fear began to lift. Outside the estate, the city was watching. Naomi's articles had ignited conversations far beyond the estate's gates, inspiring other domestic workers to come forward. Back at the estate, Mia's leadership was being tested in new ways. Some guests bristled at the changes, pushing boundaries in subtle and overt ways. Yet the staff, now empowered, stood firmer than ever. One evening, a wealthy donor, frustrated by the firm stance of the staff, muttered under his breath about uppity workers. His words, meant to be private, were overheard by several employees who reported the incident promptly. Maya addressed the donor calmly but firmly. "Respect is not optional here. Your behavior will not be tolerated." The donor's surprised silence spoke volumes. Meanwhile, Prescott, though still grappling with his own transformation, publicly supported Mia's initiatives. He had begun hosting workshops on inclusivity and respect. though some remained skeptical of his sincerity. As the estate moved forward, Mia understood that the battle was not just about one household, but about changing a culture. One that had long thrived on silence and inequality. She looked out over the estate's grounds. The night sky vast above her, and felt a renewed sense of purpose. Breaking the silence was the first step toward justice, and she would not stop until every voice was heard. The atmosphere at the Prescott estate was shifting. Slowly but unmistakably. Maya had become more than a house manager. She was a symbol of change, a beacon for those who had long been silenced. Her journey from a quiet, obedient worker to a confident leader was inspiring others both inside and outside the estate's walls. After the last gala's stormy confrontation, the estate had become a focal point for conversations about power, privilege, and respect. Mia's partnership with Naomi Park had blossomed into a broader campaign, exposing systemic injustices faced by domestic workers across Los Angeles and beyond. Maya's phone buzzed constantly with messages from former employees seeking advice. As Maya walked through the garden with Marcus, the chef, they paused to watch a group of new staff members practicing their duties. The confidence in their movements was a testament to the changing culture she had helped foster. "It's incredible," Marcus said quietly. "The way things have shifted. People are standing up for themselves now." Mia smiled, but her eyes held a seriousness born of the battles still ahead. "It's only the beginning of back at the estate." Mia faced ongoing challenges. Some guests resisted the new order, pushing boundaries and testing the limits of the staff's patience and professionalism. But Maya had established clear protocols, ensuring that respect was non-negotiable. One evening, a high-profile donor made a disparaging remark about the changing staff attitudes. Maya addressed him directly, her voice calm but firm. "Respect is the foundation of this estate now. I expect that foundation to be honored." The donors' silence spoke volumes, and word quickly spread that Maya's leadership was both firm and fair. Meanwhile, Naomi's articles continued to gain traction, prompting other estates and households to examine their own practices. Workers who had suffered in silence found strength in Mia's story. As the sun set over Los Angeles, casting a golden glow over the city, Maya stood on the estate's terrace, feeling the ripple of change spreading through her world. For the first time in a long time, she believed that justice was possible, not just for her family, but for all who had been forgotten. The estate hummed with a newfound energy. The echoes of past struggles slowly giving way to a future forged through resilience and courage. But of a leader who commanded respect through integrity and unwavering commitment. The staff meetings she held were filled with candid conversations, discussions about challenges, hopes, and strategies to maintain the culture of dignity they were building together. Maya listened intently, offering guidance and reassurance, knowing that true change was a collective effort. He said, a hint of humility in his voice. Mia smiled warmly. "That's a great idea, Victor. Let's make it happen." Outside the estate, Mia's work extended beyond the gilded gates. She continued to collaborate with Naomi Park and community leaders, advocating for stronger protections and fair treatment of domestic workers. Each speech, each meeting was a step toward dismantling the systems that had long oppressed those who served behind the scenes. Yet, the path was not without setbacks. Some influential figures resisted the changes, using their power to intimidate or discredit Maya and those who stood with her. There were moments when the weight of opposition threatened to overwhelm her resolve. But Maya remembered the faces of her mother and brother, the community that looked to her, and the countless others whose stories remained untold. Those memories fueled her determination to stand tall. During a particularly tense board meeting at Prescott's company, new hires were welcomed into a supportive environment that valued their contributions and respected their dignity. One evening, as Maya walked through the restored gardens, Prescott joined her. His expression was contemplative, a far cry from the man who once wielded his power without question. "You've changed this place," he said quietly. "And me?" Maya looked at him, a gentle smile crossing her lips. "Change is hard, but it's necessary." The stars twinkled above, silent witnesses to a transformation that had begun with a single act of courage. Maya stood tall, ready to face whatever came next, not just for herself, but for everyone who believed in a more just and compassionate world. The Prescott estate stood bathed in the golden light of dawn, a silent witness to the countless battles fought within its walls. The fire that once threatened to consume everything had instead sparked a transformation, a rebirth not just of bricks and mortar, but of values and humanity. Maya Williams stood on the terrace, the cool morning breeze tugging at her sleeves as she gazed across the sprawling gardens. The estate was no longer a symbol of unyielding power and privilege, but a testament to resilience, courage, and change. Her journey from a quiet housekeeper to the respected head of the household had been fraught with challenges, humiliation, and danger. Yet through it all, she had carried with her the hopes of her family, her community, and countless others who lived in the shadows. The estate staff, once silent and fearful, now spoke openly, their voices ringing with confidence and pride. Maya had worked tirelessly to build a culture of respect, one where dignity was a right, not a privilege. News of the changes at Prescott Estate had rippled far beyond Beverly Hills. Naomi Park's investigative work, coupled with Maya's leadership, had ignited a movement advocating for domestic workers' rights. Across the country, laws were being reconsidered, protection strengthened, and awareness raised. One afternoon, as Maya walked through the bustling kitchen, Marcus greeted her with a warm smile. "You've changed everything here," he said. "Not just the estate, but the lives it touches." Mia smiled, feeling the weight of those words. "It's a collective effort. We all play a part." Later that evening, Prescott called Maya to the drawing room. His demeanor was humble, a stark contrast to the man he had once been. "I owe you more than words can say," he began. "You saved this estate and perhaps in some ways saved me." Maya met his gaze steadily. "We all deserve a chance to grow. What matters is what we do with it." Prescott nodded. "I want you to know that your family's future is secure, and I would like to make your position permanent. Not just as house manager, but as an advisor on how we move forward." Tears pricked at Mia's eyes. The journey had been long, but this was a moment of triumph, a recognition of her strength and vision. As the sun set behind the hills, Maya reflected on the road traveled. The scars, the battles, and the victories had woven a tapestry of hope and justice. She whispered a vow to carry the legacy forward, to fight for those still unheard, and to ensure that dignity would never again be a luxury denied. The Prescott estate had been reborn. And so had Maya Williams. The story of Maya Williams teaches us profound lessons about resilience, dignity, and the power of standing up against injustice. It reminds us that true strength often comes from those who have been overlooked or silenced. And that courage in the face of adversity can ignite change far beyond a single life or place. Maya's journey shows us that respect is not a privilege reserved for the powerful, but a fundamental right owed to every human being. Her story urges us to recognize the hidden struggles many endure daily, encouraging empathy and solidarity. It highlights the importance of using our voices, no matter how small they may seem, to challenge systems that perpetuate inequality. Ultimately, this tale is a call to action for individuals, communities, and society as a whole to build foundations of fairness and compassion. It teaches us that lasting change requires courage, persistence, and the belief that everyone deserves dignity and justice. By listening to stories like Maya's, we are reminded that when we stand together, we can transform even the darkest chapters into beacons of